hand on your heart, look up at the sky, smile and say, hey, I'm alive. Thanks for being alive with me today. Hey, and welcome to Be Alive with Kate Manser. Today, I am here with the one and only Bob Peck, who is a philosopher.
Oh, quit it.
A philosopher, filmmaker, and author of Original Sin Is a Lie. So we're here to talk about life, death, love. What else is there? I mean, we've covered all of existence, haven't we?
Yeah.
Welcome, Bob.
Thanks so much for having me, Kate. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive in. You know, one of my first questions, of course, is about your book, Original Sin Is a Lie, right? We can talk a little bit about love and mortality, but what is, I mean, you as this sort of religious generalist and anti-religious generalist in some ways, what is the common thread in religion relating to being aware of our death?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was thinking about your show and the themes of your work around mortality and mortality awareness. And the East is just so incredibly, I mean, Eastern philosophy is not a monolith. There's a lot of variations here, but broadly speaking, there's this immense, I would say like cherishing. It feels like a cherish. What comes to mind to me is the Buddha talks about use this birth. Really use this birth because it's very statistically, mathematically, from a karmic standpoint, if we want to get astral with it already, you know, it's quite the jackpot, essentially, to be able to not just a human body, but the kind of the bullet list is a human body, you know, consciousness, conscious awareness, having some level of familiarity with a spiritual path, and then having access to like a teacher or teachings is just unbelievable in the cosmos. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a huge theme. Obviously, it's a big thing today of like, we take it for granted. Kind of American Western, you know, kind of late stage cap, I think is where it really gets lost in the shuffle. I think there's definitely like rich Western and American spiritual beauty also, obviously, but it just, you know, we have this kind of, I think more East hemisphere wise, at least it's like this kind of Western nihilist, it's all just meat suits and just here we are, and it, you know, you don't matter at all, and it's all just stumbling through the spinning rock and, you know, this stuff. And the Buddha is like, this is incredible that you have this. You can sit under a tree and breathe and watch your thoughts and be done with it all. You can wake up. Actually, in this one.
Yeah,
it's very powerful and profound in that way, but I think it also has a level of reality to it, and not, you know, I'm sure you've experienced this in your work around like, are we bypassing the darkness of it? Not at all. Like, yeah, that's a part of it too. But yeah, I think really using this birth and being aware of like this lifetime, this moment, these environments, these relationships is being useful, you know, for growth.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah.
And then that idea of the full spectrum of being alive and not bypassing that darkness, I think is huge. You know, I had a realization a few years ago where, you know, I had already written my book, I think, and was talking about how much I love being alive. I love life, right? Live life to the fullest. Mm-hmm. And then I got into a pretty deep depression in 2022, and I wanted out of this life. Actually, I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't think there's anything for me. God's forgotten about me. And I was so uncomfortable in my suffering. And what I realized in that was I was actually being kind of like a fraud. Because if I say I love life and then I only love the sunshine and rainbows part of life, then that's disingenuous. And so that was when I really started this relationship with trying to love, right? I'm still figuring it out, trying to love the full spectrum of being alive. And as I was thinking about this interview over the past few days, I was thinking about Jesus's life, for example, and how Jesus's life is this example of we get this encapsulated story, and his living life was quite
Super
short,
short.
but so much occurred in that lifespan of
Yeah.
the full spectrum of being alive: joy, pain, healing, suffering, sorrow. And I just think it's a great example of that full spectrum. How does that show up for you, of like, what does that idea of use life mean to you and relate to this full spectrum?
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm sorry you endured that. It sounds kind of pendulum-y, right? Like you were just like embracing it all and then just feeling the peaks and valleys of it. Yeah, I think, I'm a big fan of the Nazarene. My book Original Sin Is a Lie has a spicy title, right? And it kind of, I think it spooks some people, and that's okay. It's like, it's not personal. It's like, business is business, not personal.
My book is called You Might Die Tomorrow. So we're here on this. Yes.
Swinging. We're swinging with it. No, I'm a big fan of the Nazarene. I'm also, I'm also a fan of plenty of aspects of American Christianity. And I think that, it's a little bit of its marketing, but I do have an issue with original sin, the doctrine, which says that we're inherently dirty and require Jesus's death to be saved. That's a 300-year later doctrine created by Augustine of Hippo. So the book goes into some detail about that, but it's more about kind of mystic philosophy, the world mystics, kind of who all have this perennial type of wisdom around, you're not dirty. You actually are not stamped with this darkness. You are, you're the child of Creator, and that means that you're perfect love. And the love that Creator has for you, according to the world mystics, according to the masters, men and women throughout history who have broken the veil, is that it's inescapable, actually. The love for you is so profound that it's beyond concept. It's beyond words, And, try as hard as you want, and you can't get away from it. So that's what kind of my thing's about. But Jesus is a big part of the book, because what I'm trying to do in there is essentially, kind of untangle some of the institutional add-ons to him. And I'm really annoyed that I heard about this image after I wrote the book, because it sums it up really well. It's a monk named Brother David Steindl-Rast, and he said it's the image of the volcano. And he says all religions come from mysticism. And it's like a volcano. When the volcano explodes, that's Jesus, Christ consciousness is a term that I think applies there. That's the Buddha nature, the Buddha's awakening. The men and women throughout history who have these experiences and these connections and these revelatory moments. That's the volcano exploding. It's so much energy and so much power. It's undeniable, all this stuff. And what happens is the lava rolls down the mountain and rolls down the mountain, and then after decades and centuries and millennia, it becomes cold, dead rock. And that's kind of what, a few of these a couple thousand-year-old institutional religions have become. They become so distant from that initial connection that was so real and tangible. And so I kind of, in some ways, I'm critiquing institutional religion, certainly the worst aspects of it, like control and abuse and greed and hypocrisy and so on. But there are nice aspects of it. I think there are some of the best people in the world are very religious people also. And, I also get kind of angry atheists who are kind of going, yeah, man, original sin is a lie. And then they kind of dig into my stuff and they're like, wait a second, this guy, what is this devotional stuff, And so I'm kind of playing both those worlds. But to come back to Jesus and the masters, I see these stories of these individuals, to your point earlier, of like the richness of their lives and like the highs and lows. And Milarepa, for example, is one of my favorite saints who I'm happy to talk about. I think he's in one of the cards, but who endured like immense humiliations and challenges. And we think of these people as like saints or bodhisattvas or whatever, but it's like, yeah, they have really hard lives. So I get a lot from studying them. I get a lot from kind of understanding their lives and and kind of use them as a guidepost almost.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll pull one of these cards in a second. But
Yeah,
first, I
great.
want to talk about that image of the volcano
Yeah,
that you talk
yeah.
about, and you talk about on sort of a macrocosmic level in terms of these world religions, and there's this Christ consciousness, this source energy, if you will, and it bursts out, and then over time then it kind of flows down, and then it hardens and it becomes old and decrepit and out of date and far
mad I
from
didn't come
the
up with
source, right? Yeah, and that you didn't see it until after you wrote your book.
Right.
But I wonder if we think about that on a microcosmic level for the individual, right? Because I think there's this misconception out there that when you have some type of awakening or some type of contact, palpable contact with God, that you are then transformed and you are forever walking on those sunshine and roses. But in my experience, I've had a few different types of awakenings in my life. And what I find is I go back to some version of maybe not 0, but like 5 degrees, you know, it's like you're at 100 and then you sort of come back and you're maybe 5 degrees more, I hate this word, but enlightened or aware than you were.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think part of maintaining this Christ consciousness and source energy is like, you have to keep exploding the volcano, right? Through awareness, through
Sure.
meditation, through conversation, writing, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah, Alan Watts is a hero to me, and so many of us. He says if you're caught in a loop, you keep kind of going around and around. He goes, take heart, because that's what everything in this universe is doing.
Take heart.
It's all just orbiting. It's all just going around and around. All the biggest things in this universe are doing that, and so it's this carousel like quality that you're describing. And so yeah, I completely agree, and it's encouraging to be like, oh, it's like I'm caught in this cycle, like I can't break this, I keep coming back to this thing, and I thought I was beyond this. It's like, no, that's how it all works in this physical universe, is this kind of cyclical nature to things. So yeah, don't beat yourself up.
Well, with love at the center, just what you were saying earlier, that love is the center, that original sin is a lie. We've been sort of conditioned to think that we're circling hell and being wrong, and what you're saying is that actually all of this dancing that we're dancing, getting a little bit closer to love.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the mystics have this kind of language around like undoing, kind of remembrance of the true nature is a big theme. I think it's Meister Eckhart. He says love is melting. It's just kind of, you're just undoing it. It's almost like in aspects of Western Christianity and aspects of the Abrahamics, it's like you're this dirty, and stamped scarlet letter kind of thing, and in the East, again broadly, but it's we just forgot who we are for a minute. It's much less like who you truly are is like the Buddha nature. You're a sleeping Christ. You're just kind of walking through the day. You're a little groggy. That's all.
Yeah.
But it's okay. You're gonna snap out of it. So I love that distinction, and I'm happy to be here in America, trying to shout from the rooftops, because it's
Shine that light.
just stuck. Yeah, there's a lot of conditioning from that, from that guilt and shame that people are walking around with.
Yeah, and I love Neville Goddard's reading of the Bible, which highlights the fact that the most repeated phrase in the Bible is the phrase "I am." I am the light of the world. I am the Lamb of God. I am. And that Neville Goddard's reading of it is that the Bible is actually trying to remind us that we are all God. But that can be really intense, I think, this idea of like, oh my God, I'm God. Even just saying those words. I mean, I've really tried to develop a practice. I have the Post-its that I've written all around my studio and everything. I am. I actually got it embroidered on a pillow just to remind myself. But what you're offering is this idea of, yes, I am God, but we can also think about it like I am love. And I love how in like AA, for example, they say, because it's obviously a very religious program. And they're like, okay, well, we want you to have some type of higher power to teach you humility. That's how I look at it from the outside. And if you can't believe in God, if you're an atheist, then just say like the doorknob is your God. It's sort of like this junior way of approaching it.
Great.
And saying, I
love
am
how spiritual AA is, by the way. It's
Yeah.
I think it's really useful. Yeah.
Oh, it is. It is. And there, there's ups and downs, just like anything human, right, is going to have multifaceted sides to it. But this idea of I am God, I am love, how does that show up for you in your life, right? Like, because there's this process of remembering and forgetting, I feel like.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, the I am is huge. And I think it's John 14:6 is, I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father except through me. Which, when I first started posting on Instagram, fun side note, my handle on TikTok was at Original Sin Is a Lie. And that attracted a level of vitriol and condemnation from my joke is like all caps Christians, like really angry some of those comments about that. And most of the verses that I was suggested to read, which I had because I have a degree in religious studies, it's a bachelor's, but anyway.
But you did read, yes.
Familiar with the New Testament. Thank you, Carol. Thanks, Monica in Kansas City, breaking your keys. No, John 14:6, and it's like John 14:6, like he's the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father except through him. And I write about John in the book. I'll spare everybody the hardcore New Testament scholarship lesson here, but if you're interested, Original Sin Is a Lie, out now. He's talking to the disciples in John in that moment. John is more symbolic. It's called the spiritual gospel. Mark, Matthew, and Luke are a little more human. In Mark, he has a failed miracle, for example. There's this kind of evolution of the Jesus character and his power across the four gospels. So by the time you get to John, he is just the king of the cosmos. I mean, it's this... I do believe the man was real. I'm talking about the character in the four portrayals of the four gospels. But by the time we get to John, he is just this grand cosmic thing. And I do think that there's aspects of that truth, but he's using spiritual language. He's using symbolic language. And people in that community, mystics, spiritual philosophers, that's not unique, that the way of talking like that. Krishna says so many I am statements to Arjuna. Buddha, I am awake is what Buddha means. It's the awakened one. So there's a ton of I am statements across traditions, but yeah, I love Jesus's use of I am, and even though it's sometimes used against me as a universalist, I see its real power. And I love Neville's stuff too. I think Neville Goddard it's cool. I've been aware of him for a decade or so. It's been cool to kind of see him get some popularity in the meditation community and stuff.
Oh yeah, big in the manifestation.
Reads. Yeah, manifestation is great.
Community for sure.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's pull one of these cards.
Yeah, so my friend Jonathan at Sage Trading Cards makes trading cards of mystics. And it's like we have baseball players, we have Pokemon, there's like imaginary creatures that we're collecting. Can we collect the saints of history that broke the veil and revealed our inherent beauty? So he has a great Sage Trading Cards is his brand, and they're really cool. And so yeah, pull one. There's like yeah, I think I wanted to grab. So all right, I got Swami Vivekananda.
All right, what do we got?
So Swami Vivekananda is Ramakrishna's disciple. And he's a late 1800s Swami from India. His story with Ramakrishna is amazing, but which I could go into too much detail for you, Kate. But this is a pretty good quote to read, relevant to what we're talking about. Cool. It says, "All power is within you. You can do anything and everything. Believe in that. Do not believe that you are weak. Do not believe that you are half crazy lunatics, as most of us do nowadays. You can do anything and everything without even the guidance of anyone. Stand up and express the divinity within you." So there's Vivekananda giving it to you straight. He does not hold back. I love the line, "Do not believe that you're half crazy lunatics, as most of us do nowadays."
Which was written
So
when?
he died in 1902, 1863 to 1902. So yeah, it's all the same. It's all, we're caught in these cycles. We're caught in these loops. And these men and women throughout history are kind of just reminding us of our inherent beauty and our inherent power. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll link to the trading cards in the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah.
And being caught in these cycles actually brings me to my next question, which is this concept that I love. It's by a psychiatrist, Robert Jay Lifton, and it's called the paths of symbolic immortality. And it's sort of based in the idea that death motivates everything that we do. We're going back to mortality now.
Survivorship. Yeah.
Yeah, that death motivates all art, that it motivates all of our society and politics and every decision that we make. But the paths to symbolic immortality, there's 5 of them. And it's based on this idea that, like, we know that we are mortal, but we try everything in our power to do something to not be mortal, that we really try to be immortal. And so the paths to symbolic immortality, there's 5 of them. One of them is we try to become immortal through biology, through procreation, right? Like if our DNA is in another person who lives on, and then that goes. The second way is through theology, through religion and belief in an afterlife, right? Then we can go on, we never actually die. The third way is through creative projects. So through books or our name on a library or something relating to our legacy. The fourth way is through nature, which is, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We die, we go into the ground, we feed the bugs, the tree grows up, and so on.
Circle of life.
Circle of life.
Lion King. Watching it
Humana,
heavy with my son. Yeah.
And then the 5th way, which to my understanding was added later. Originally, it was 4 symbolic immortality keys, and then they added this 5th one, which is that we can achieve symbolic immortality through transcendence, through transcending this earthly experience and meditating or communing with the divine spirits, source, whatever. So I'm just curious, this brings up a lot of question of being caught in these cycles. And if we're dedicating all of our lives to these things, having kids, religion, writing the book, going back to nature and transcendence, that kind of seems like most of life. Do you think that this is an ego trap, or what else is there?
That's a really great question. Those are really cool. It's a cool list. I playfully said no at the top, but I am motivated by like literally all 5 of those things. I'm like, it's like creative. I'm like, yeah, I made 800 TikToks or whatever. I'm just constantly making videos. No, and my son and my spiritual practice and all that. So you kind of diagnosed me with that note card.
Are you trying to live forever, Bob?
What comes up to mind to me too is in non-duality. So in mystic philosophy, world mystic philosophy, and maybe it's good to zoom out for a second. So what does mystic actually mean? Mystic is just this idea that you are connected to God internally. It's the inner path. It's tied to the esoteric tradition. So in every religion, you have what's called the exoteric and the esoteric. And the exoteric is the institution. That's the priest, the community, the sangha, the imam, the structure, and they have value. I'm not so blind to not see the value that those systems and even deeply personal, positive transformational experiences that come out of the exoteric. That said, I'm on the esoteric side of it, and so many people that I know and love and care about and have learned from are in that side of it, and that's synonymous with the mystics and mysticism. There's kind of an American semantic confusion around mystic as kind of magic, I've learned, and that's not quite it. It really when I talk about the mystics, I'm talking about internal path spiritual figures, and they are tied to religion. Sometimes they're not tied to religion. Sometimes they live on a mountaintop. Sometimes they, have prominent positions in some structural, thing. But within mystic philosophy, there's kind of gradations of this. But typically, the exoteric side of religion is going to be more dualistic. God is up there, out there, he's on the cloud. That's the over basic simplified version or whatever, but I ain't God. It's kind of this real separation. And
exogenous, right? As what it's sort
exactly.
of the parallel of the vernacular.
Right, well, very much exoskeleton,
Outside of us,
outside of
over
ourselves.
there. We're trying to
Exactly.
get to God. God is not in here.
Totally, and it creates, at its worst, that's what creates kind of the tribalistic. That's how the wars and the red people and the blue people and so there are issues over there, but it does have value too. But that's on a dualistic side. But on the other side of the spectrum, it becomes non-dual. So non-dual just means not two. And it gets pretty, come on down the rabbit hole, Alice, a little bit, because essentially what, when you read these guys and gals, they have these experiences where some of them will go into kind of ecstatic states. In Hinduism, there's a term for it. It's called samadhi. It's happened so much for these guys and gals. But there's kind of this level of awareness that these figures will embody that shows them the dreamlike, I would say, unreality of material phenomena. I think I used the term veil breaker earlier, right? It's like they've broken through the veil. Milarepa calls this world a mist. It's kind of it's all a passing show. Yogananda movies just came out when Yogananda was alive, so he loved the movies, projection of light, image. And so I come back to that a lot in my life and in, especially conversations like this. And so when you're talking about kind of immortality and those 5 things, the non-dual perspective is those are all true in the dualistic material, but that's part of the dream too. And there's nothing, there's no need really to be concerned about the eternality of what's underneath the dream, because what's underneath the dream that is the reality. That is the perfect oneness, perfect, beyond form, beyond concept, and so on.
Wow. I just want to let that land for a second. That idea that this thing that we're so obsessed with figuring out, is God real? What else is there? What happens after we die? You just kind of said, keep doing these dances with, having kids and writing books and communing with nature and
it doesn't
meditating.
mean don't do it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean, but it does say don't worry so much about what is beyond the veil. That's just there. And I guess we're going back there probably when we die. So why, but we want to touch it so bad while we're here.
Yeah, it's a fascinating play, and there's a lot of humor and kind of lightness in the way that those. I like the word saints. Some of my ex-Christian fam, whom I love, are not so crazy about some of these terminology, even the G word. But anyway, these saints and they have this kind of playfulness and lightness to it. Ramakrishna says it's like a child playing with toys, and then the mother walks in. The child throws away the toys and then runs to the mother. It's like you can still have your little things, but when you get reconnected with God, with the perfect eternality, you go run to her. So there's a million of those. But yeah, it's people are taking it too seriously, especially in America. I think more probably maybe the worst culprit globally, but I love America in some ways, and I love the American people, but we just, Mike Judge was right. Idiocracy is true. The late stage capitalism of just greed and this kind of numbness to what really matters and what really, the profundity of life and the lightness of life. We've just become kind of deadened to it in some ways. So it's sad, but it's also funny. And
yeah. But I think that is a commentary on the getting so caught up in the exogenous versus the endogenous, right? The idea of capitalism is I'm not enough. I need to buy X, Y, and Z. I need to work this job, get this amount of success versus this what's inside. That's that's what I guess will save us and heal us.
Yeah.
So how do you, because you just said, okay, we don't need to concern ourselves so much with what is beyond the veil because it just is. But there is definitely something to be said about getting too caught up in the external. And for me, I have discovered that remembering that I'm alive is for me the most easily accessible way to have that momentary dance with transcendence, right? Like you can meditate, you can take drugs, you can have a great conversation, commune with nature. But at least in my experience, I call them alive moments where I just sort of like pause for a second. I remember that I'm alive. I feel this like energy in my body. I realize like, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like you're real. This is real. And that perspective of it's really zooming out, that alive moment. So
beautiful.
What is
it's like with Satori and Zen. It's just like this kind of instant presence. Yeah.
Instant presence. How do you achieve that? Like, what is that's my go-to is these alive moments. That's what I teach and I talk about. But what is it for you?
Caffeine.
Caffeine, yeah.
No, I think everything you said, I really agree with you that it requires that conscious process. Some of these saints have really dramatic awakenings, right? The Buddha sitting under the tree. Some mystics or Christian contemplatives say like Jesus' baptism or Jesus in the desert, or even more modern ones like Eckhart Tolle sitting on the park bench. He just kind of some of these have really dramatic. It hasn't been like that for me. It's much more incremental.
Really?
It's much slower over time. It's just kind of back to that mystic language earlier. It's just kind of a melting away. I'll look up and react much less than I would have a couple of years ago. This sounds silly, but I just noticed, for example, when I'm in traffic, which is like one of the greatest gifts of presence practice on planet Earth, because I'm like, oh, I'm so whatever. And you're like, this guy's brights are on. Like, what are you? He's blinding me. No, when I saw, this sounds so silly, but here it is, fire trucks going by. And I just like, I think when I'm like in a hurry or angry, it's just like, gee, this is an inconvenience or whatever. And recently, like the last couple of years, I've seen the fire trucks go by and like I'll pull over and I'm just like so moved by them. Like I'm just like, they're going into danger. Like I'm going to get choked up right now. Like they're driving very fast into danger to save someone. Are we serious right now? Dude, like, come on. And it's like, a couple years ago, it was just like, oh, well, this is like a thing, or like, oh, this is like an obstacle on the road for me to avoid. And I think like just noticing that, I was like, oh, it's working. Great. This is working. All right. Way to go, Mom. Whatever. So it is the little moments. It is the little like conscious awareness moments. In terms of practices, I love what you said. I love, conversations, kind of meditative moments, creativity. I do consider myself a writer. That's a title that I struggled with for a while, but I put a book out, so I am one now. Damn it,
Boom.
I'm a writer, and also service. I've done food bank work for about 15 years, which I highly recommend. It's a profound thing to feed hungry people. It's like a drug. You get a lot out of it. It's the right thing to do, but it's also, it fills you up and you leave and you're just like, you're on this kind of high, So there's a lot of ways to get there.
Humility, man. I love being humbled, whether it's by nature, by somebody else, by God, by getting my ass handed to me in whatever way. Yeah. Humility is a hell of a... And, working at the food bank, for sure, it's like, oh, the act of service. Yeah,
it's a big perspective shift. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're doing with this aliveness work is you're grabbing people by the shoulders and you're going, hey,
this is happening right now.
Yeah. There's oxygen in your lungs right now. So yeah, the yogas. So in Hinduism, they have, Hinduism is like, we could talk about it for 19 hours and we wouldn't scratch the surface, but there's a simplified kind of practice concept called the yogas, or the 4 yogas rather, where they all kind of have certain categories of practice for certain people. Like I think we've gotten so lucky to understand the mind more in the last 100 years. We have, psychometric assessments. We can thank Freud and Jung and, all these brilliant, scientists of the mind for highlighting and letting the Western mind know. But the East kind of already knew this. It's called, the yogas are Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raja Yoga. And so, there's kind of different ways to get there. There's different paths for everyone. Jnana Yoga is more about meditation. It's more about sitting still, noticing your thoughts, undoing the thought, releasing the thought. Ramana Maharshi says, neti, neti, not this, not that, not that. You're just undoing. And it's this very kind of rote meditation practice. Bhakti Yoga, or the Bhaktas, they are kind of the emotional spiritual path. They are the dancers and writers and poets, and kind of they're the ones crying in church, and the Sufis that's whirling dervishes, they spin. That's the Bhaktis, the Bhakti path. Karma Yoga is service. So that's feeding people, Habitat for Humanity, the women's shelter people, just serving people is a way to get there. And when I say way to get there, I mean to God, to your true self, to undoing it all, and so on. The fourth one is called Raja Yoga, and that's kind of like all the paths combined. There's some kind of disagreement over what that means, but it's all the big three. So anyway, it's a real joy for me to highlight kind of some of these practices. American Christianity is just Jesus, check yes or no.
Yeah.
Give
money to the church, and that's your act of
do
service.
your thing,
You don't actually
here.
have to be with the people.
Well, I'm having some trouble with this. We'll just believe more. What's wrong with you? Yeah. The world mystics and Eastern philosophy has this real rich spectrum of practices, kind of depending on the person, depending on the type needed.
So you talk a lot about, obviously, lots of different religions, and I read a post recently where you said that you attend many different denominations of churches, as well as plenty of non-denominational practices. So it gives me this sense of that you're really good at taking what works for you and leaving the rest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how does that work, and what is the value of going? Where do you go all
heretic.
in?
Okay,
What are
yeah, man, that's a great question. Probably love.
Love. Go all in.
Let's go all in on love. Yeah, when I was in my early 20s, I'm 38 in a couple months. Shout out.
Happy birthday.
Let's do it.
38,
coming up.
lucky number 8.
Let's do it. 88 year, double infinity.
Yes.
22, 23, I joined Kriya Yoga in Dripping Springs, Texas. And it was really beautiful. It was Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. Just read it. Just do it. You've heard of it. If you're listening to Kate's podcast, go get through the first 2 chapters that are slow. By the time you hit chapter 5, you're in. And I was just really getting into Hinduism. And I still am. But there was an interesting moment at that time when I would drive to Dripping Springs. I was going to kind of a little yoga group. It was a bunch of old white hippies, kind of like a bunch of old George Harrison types, kind of Beatle, flower child, but in their 60s and 70s at that time. They're so sweet, like really nice white Hindus. And I drove past this temple, and there was a temple down there. It's now called Radha Dav Temple. It used to be called Barsana Dham, so I'm teasing the story, but I drove in there one time, and I was really hoping for some kind of experience. It was like I was reading the Gita, and I'm just like loving all the things Indian at that point. That was my Harrison phase. And there's peacocks walking around. There's like a couple of swamis. Like it feels like a legit Indian place, and in the middle of Texas. And I specifically remember I just got nothing. I got nothing there, and I was kind of disappointed. And about a year later, the head of that temple was indicted based on allegations that he was abusing women and girls and young girls. And he was taken to court. I think he was bailed out, and he escaped to Mexico and to India. So I think he's on the FBI's one of their like wanted lists, which is terrible. And my peace to the victims. They've renamed the temple. They got rid of all his stuff. So they disconnected with him. I don't remember his name, but Barsanadam, Austin, Texas. Yeah, the defrocked holy man, guru, who's hiding in India from the FBI. It was useful for me because I was just so, this is it. This is the one, and it ain't because they all have value, and they all have human sticky ego BS. And it's like, it's so liberating to come to that awareness of it. There's sectarian disputes in all these religious traditions. Some of the greatest human beings of all time have been Christian. Some of the most barbarian Neanderthals of all time have called themselves Christian. And that's true for Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, and atheism. No religion too, this full spectrum of humanity. So really understanding that, it makes it a lot easier for me to, hit the buffet line. I got a couple of temples I like to go to. In Eastern stuff, like they'll usually have, like in Hinduism, they'll have a gal, for example, Amakarunamai will like tour. So they'll like do like a world tour. And so every like April she comes to Austin. So I'll go.
Okay.
And I'll just be in the back, and maybe mushrooms will hit. Maybe not, but
Yeah.
sometimes.
The spiritual mushrooms.
Just journaling. I'm just a weird red-eyed guy journaling in the back of the Hindu temple. Yeah, and it's a fun role to play, and it brings me value.
Yeah. So you're all in on love. That's the focus. And, these religions, you're taking what you feel called to and leaving the rest and learning from them, finding common threads. It reminds me of, I don't actually know who said this, but I know Ram Dass has parroted it at points, but this idea of wearing our beliefs like a loose garment, or, holding our beliefs loosely in the palm of our hand. And I kind of think that I kind of try to keep that awareness in myself, is whenever I'm like saying something,
the hair comes up for the American Christian.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like at any point when I'm feeling very like pit bull, and I own a pit bull, so I'm allowed to say that. When I'm feeling very like intense about something, that's my signal to go like, oh, unless it's really pure love, you need to loosen that grip on that belief. And just like you said, yeah, the hair comes up right now because people are holding beliefs so tightly. Yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad you surfaced that, because it comes for me right into non-dual. And it's sometimes this language is confusing for folks, or for people that maybe new to this, where it's like, you don't exist. It's called, like, for fun, like Bob Peckness, right? Or like, it's in the Gita, Krishna says, you're an actor playing the role. You're playing the part. That's what non-duality is. There's this eternal you that is impenetrable, imperturbable, perfect oneness, perfect love, that is not deceived. And yet here we are kind of playing this role in the play, and hit your mark, by the way. I'm very anti-bypass, like learn the lines, hit your moves, and then hit the wings, and then change a costume, and then come, that's a real cohesive perennial idea across these traditions, is the transitory nature. I think in Hinduism, it's more kind of life to life, soul to soul. In Buddhism, it's more time-based. A Buddhist would say something like, this is a wooden table. For now, it was a tree. Before that, it was a seed. So it was a seed. Then it's a tree. Eventually, it'll be trash. Maybe it'll get burned. It'll be just pieces. It'll be flakes of ash at some point. It's a table. For now. This little moment in time, it's a table, but it's always changing. There's no solidity. And so I think that's useful in the non-dual sense, because we just want to hold on to it. We get so tight about it, and it's just, no, that's what I believe. And seeing the passing transitory nature of material phenomena is like, it really, the whole thing just lightens up.
Yeah. Well, and that brings in the conversation as well of life and death of humans, right? Like we have this transitory experience, and it also is, I think, a life raft for our spirits in a time like we're in now, and we feel like there's a ton of chaos. It feels like evil is winning in some ways. But this idea that this table is only, I mean, as solid as it is right now, it's only a table for a limited amount of time. We're only alive for a limited amount of time. The people in power are only alive for a limited amount of time. The type of environment that we're in is transitory. So it just feels a little bit lighter. It removes a little bit of that heaviness. Yeah. And, you mentioned that one of your things that you're working through right now is this idea of, can it be solved with love? That, that's your main thing right now. But this idea of, can it be solved with love? How is that showing up for you? And where has it been sticky for you?
Sucks. No,
it sucks.
It ain't easy, let me tell you. No, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, well, you kind of touched on that earlier, like around the synonym between God and love. I think that's really useful. I think that's not as like ubiquitous as it should be. It's really important. God is like Carol Howe, who's a really great ACIM teacher, Course in Miracles teacher. I'm a big Course in Miracles head, by the way, if you can't tell. Carol Howe says, just say love. Like in the lessons, it'll say like God, da da da, and it's just like, she's like, just say love is da da da. And I think that is really useful. It's like if God is love, then isn't being more loving, being more godly? We have this, again, kind of semantic bucketing of like God and godliness and holy and all the, a lot of it's coming down, I think, thankfully, in the last, few years and decade probably. But yeah, loving, it really is the answer. It's like the mystics are right. Jesus was right. The Buddha was right. Jesus forgives his killers on the cross, which is the avatars. That's how do you do it? That's how you do it. The Buddha has an image it's called like the saw cutters teaching or something. He says, if someone cuts, then people get so mad on Instagram in the comments of this one. If someone cuts you across your body with a saw back and forth and you give rise to anger, you're not my disciple. He's using, it's a hyperbole.
Turn the
guys.
other cheek.
Yeah,
right?
It's a hyperbolic image here, because what comes in is, it's kind of like you're alluding to like the situation in the world and like politics. And, I think we have really tough things. I've talked a lot about the genocide in Palestine. I've talked a lot about challenges that we're facing globally. And the mystics also never encourage apathy or indifference to suffering. They always encourage solidarity and compassion and reducing suffering. That's may all beings be at peace is a core Buddhist principle. But I think the way out is with love. The way out is through love, because the people that are causing the issues and the problems are suffering themselves. Thich Nhat Hanh talked a lot about that. It's like, if you're dropping bombs, if you're starting a war, you have such immense suffering and lack of in your own self that we have to solve it in ourselves. It still means we protect the vulnerable. It still means that we feed the hungry. Mystics throughout history are always honestly dealing with corrupt rulers and kings. And, Jesus is murdered by the state. Kabir was a saint in medieval India, and the Hindu leaders and the Muslim leaders didn't like him. He was a jokester and a poet, and he would just kind of go around. He was nomadic, like yourself, and he would go around, and there was corrupt rulers, and now he's a saint in both religions centuries later. Zhuangzi is an ancient Chinese Taoist poet who talks about who writes poems about the corruption and the greed of the leadership of the emperor at that time, right? So the mystics are a real lifeline for me in terms of pragmatic, my own path, my relationships with other people, relationship with God, but also the relationship to the world, the relationship to corruption and leadership and so on. They're a real resource for people.
Psychologically, spiritually,
and
circumstantially, like figuring out,
geopolitically,
trying to find
even.
analogs in what's happening now with what happened 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. It's kind of that cycle thing from earlier. It's like we're just half crazy lunatics, like everyone thinks nowadays. It's like it's all the same thing.
Oh man, coming back to love, life,
so
death.
Just love your way out of it. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I pray for Netanyahu, right? Which I haven't actually talked about online because I felt a little bit weird about it, right? But like, I genuinely like send that person love. I send other leaders love who are doing very horrible. But it's
Beautiful.
like, and of course, like I'm sending it to the people who are being persecuted as well. But I feel like change often happens. Certainly grassroots, but also from the top down. And like, I pray that they could just wake up and have an awakening one day, like sit on a bus stop and just all of a sudden wake up and be like, oh,
beautiful.
This is wrong.
Not everybody's there. But I think that is the right on way to do it personally. And I'm cheerleading you on that. And I'm doing my best in that world too. And I made a post about Ram Dass had a picture of Donald Trump on his altar. And the Ram Dass Facebook group community, by the way, is hilarious. Like it's its own, like it has its own lore and people get banned. And it's like, anyway, that's like the one reason I still log into Facebook is it so
That's your Real
check the Ram
Housewives.
Dass. Yeah. What's going on in the Ram Dass Facebook?
Group?
The old white Hindus again.
What's the drama? What's the tea?
What's the juice? But that was a spicy thing, and it is spicy, and it's because he noticed that when he saw that person, he didn't feel love, and so putting who you have a real issue with on your altar. And he makes that joke. I think it's from the 60s or 70s about, I think it was the Secretary of Defense. It was a guy named Caspar Weinberger. He was in like Nixon's cabinet. But he would say, every time he saw him on TV, he would get so angry. So he put his picture on the altar then. And
exposure therapy.
So he would wake up in the morning, do his meditation and say, "Good morning, Christ. Good morning, Buddha. Hi, Maharaji. Hi, Ananda Mai Ma." He's going down hi, Casper. It's like this. Yeah, you're in the gym. Do the reps, build that muscle. So I respect that. And I think we're all getting there.
Yeah. So just in closing, I'm curious, what are you working on right now? You're making a ton of TikTok videos and some really beautiful content online. If you're not following Bob Peck, please do. What else you have in the hopper?
Thank you. It's been fun. I have a side project. It's a mindfulness company. Yeah. It's a few years old now. Me and two friends of mine, we started making mindfulness courses. We started with kids, and we branched into school teachers. So we have a program for school teachers to help them learn mindfulness and meditation. It's not super non-dual. It's more secular and accessible for the American education system. It probably is a little woo-woo for some American school administrators, but there's a lot of receptivity now, more so than ever, to that kind of stuff. But yeah, working on programs with those guys. We're called the Awareness and Compassion Project. And that is where I'm spending more of my time nowadays. I know what the second book idea is definitely... I've been just kind of tiptoeing around it for a while, and had some, to your point, it's like peaks and valleys, had some valleys at the end of last year, and harvesting the fruit of that. And so, just trying to plant some sunflowers, Kate, in this crazy world for a few minutes,
Well, what makes you feel alive? That's where we'll end. What's making you feel alive? What's turning you on these days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think reminding people of their own inherent beauty. It's like the mirror land. It's mirror world. It's like I love the billboard thing like that. That's come out of the TikToks. It's like, I'm not a guru. Please don't. Like, I don't even like teacher, really. Like I said, I'm okay with writer and philosopher. Like, it took a long time to accept those two. But writer, philosopher,
We're there.
I am those guys. We're
Good.
there. But I'm just pointing to the masters. I'm pointing to God. I'm pointing to your own true self inside your own heart. It's like, I'm just the billboard, like exit 207 coming up, it's like, that's
Check out what's there.
Exactly. And I've got a couple of nice messages over the years from people saying, hey, this is really helpful. And I'm sure you have too, where it's like, it's just, there's a lot of noise out there, and samsara, to your point, that's another word for the world. The samsara, it's very sticky, and it's very heavy, and it's easy to get caught in it. And so contributing to, in a humble way, for all of us, myself and everyone else, getting out of it it's kind of like, what else is there to do?
Yeah. So if you're looking for a non-dogmatic philosopher and writer, that's what we're comfortable with right now, who wants to point you to, and heretic, who wants to point you to some ideas to see, how that resonates for you, help you discover your own inner truth and beauty, then follow Bob Peck. And it's been an honor to have you on today. Thanks for bringing those cards, for throwing down some knowledge, and for pointing us back to love.
Thanks for letting me gas station coffee it up with you. And pull some cards.
Beautiful. Thanks,
Appreciate
Bob.
it. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you for watching Be Alive with Kate Manser today. It is my honor to have you here. It is my honor to invite you into this beautiful space where we talk about big ideas, life, death, and everything in between. There's no topic off limits. And if you haven't already yet today, now is a great moment to place your hand on your heart, to take a breath, to feel the heartbeat and the energy coursing through your veins, to allow a small smile to come to your face and just say, hey, I'm alive. Thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Share with a friend who needs a little bit of aliveness in their life, and I'll catch you on the next one, y'all.